That's unnecessary.
Hello, and welcome to the Purple Rock Podcast. I am your host, Andy, and helping us out as our regular co-host, John, will not be with us tonight, is Emma. And Emma, before we start the episode, I want to let you know not to worry. If the guys come to me with a male alliance, I'll let you know that you're on your own.
Cool. I mean, I'm pretty much always on my own anyway, so...
Yeah, and this episode shows you why, right? If we let more than one woman get together, we could be in trouble. I could get blindsided.
Yes, we might vote you off of the podcast.
Look, I mean, that's a point. If we could vote people off of this thing, let's just say there might be a few torches stuffed here or there. Just so everybody knows, the reason why Emma, whatever we're going to call her, is here with us tonight is probably obvious to some of you. John could not be here because there's a bit of a weather situation where he's living, but everything sounds like he and his family are currently safe. They just have more important things to do than talk about Survivor, if that's possible.
Wishing you all the best, John.
Yeah, and anybody else that happens to be from that weird America's Dong. I think that's what it is.
Also, if Joe could let me know what this so-called weather thing is, I'm very curious.
Yeah, and so that what means is that you're stuck with me still, which is all summer, you and I, and then all of this. People are probably wishing, some kind of disaster to take a break from me. But sorry, we don't get extreme weather where we live, just bad weather most of the time.
I don't get that part either.
No, you just,
Let's get temperate one day, and hot.
And at some point, if this podcast is interrupted by an earthquake where you are, I'll finally get the dream of doing a solo podcast, which would be a tough adjustment.
That could happen at literally every moment. Some might have heard there was this big earthquake advisory thing because there were some shakes out somewhere that they thought could affect the San Andreas Fault, because you can't normally predict earthquakes. Nothing happened. It's fine.
And nobody heard that. We're actually focused on real people. Stop trying to make everything about yourself, Emma.
Because that's
what you millennials do to transition into this episode. So we start with this episode of Hannah. God, she was awful. It was painful. And frankly, I think it was a black mark on your entire generation, and you have to answer for it now.
Well, I would like to point out that Adam and Zeke are also part of my generation, and they were the ones suffering that. And I personally am closer in age definitely to Adam, and about equidistant to Zeke as I am to Hannah. So, there's that. But yeah, I am someone who's probably a pretty socially awkward person, but also avoids that sort of confrontation she was going for, so I don't really relate to that. But, oh, man, girl, stop. You're making it worse.
Yeah, and it's just it's almost like a parody of a millennial think piece. That it's my feelings need to be validated right now. I don't care what you need. I need you guys to be okay with me now, and I'm not going to leave until you recognize and acknowledge me.
Yeah, there hadn't even been evidence that they were, actually mad. Obviously they were shaken, and it's the whole thing, but it's judging from what we had seen in the preview, it almost seemed like they went and attacked her, but it's especially because she has more of a defense than everyone. They clearly, even though they didn't know at the time, they know that a conversation was happening at Tribal, which means they know Hannah either A, was last minute addition, or B, was resistant to it and was trying to change it or something. She was in the best spot to still be okay with those guys. Give them time to decompress and get closure on what happened, and then let them sleep on it the next morning and be God, I still like you guys better. I don't even like these people, but they told me they had the numbers, and I couldn't get that message to you because of where I was sitting, and I'm sorry, but let's see if we can get Will and Michaela and flip on these people.
Yeah, and I'm okay with her attempting to bridge that gap right then, but when they're telling you, and especially when Zeke is telling you, not right now, Hannah, I need to be left alone, I will talk to you later about this. I just need some time. Not right now. And it's just like, God, you're so dense. And there's the defense of social awkwardness and all that. And obviously, she has some issues with social awkwardness, but it's just more like just selfishness. They are the losers. You were blindsided to a degree, but you didn't lose. Let them be. And moreover, like even if it's not even a win or loser situation, if somebody is working to hold in their emotions and not get mad at you, and they just make an honest request of, can you please give me a minute? You give them a minute. It's not that complicated. Like Zeke was trying and trying and trying until you blow up, because that's what happens when somebody's asking you to give them a minute because they're going to get angry and you don't. They will get angry. That's what they were telling you. That's what they were trying to avoid. Oh no, how dare the Hulk attack me when he told me that you wouldn't like it when I get angry. And I gotta say, like, this combined with the last we saw of Hannah in the episode before, where she took 10 minutes to cast a vote, tells me, I think, basically all I need to know, and that she is not going to be a player worth worrying about. She just lacks maybe it's just a personal confidence. Maybe it's a constant driven by a desire for people to like her, which not great in somebody who's going to try and do things in Survivor.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that, like, my whole like humor defense mechanism thing is to make people like me. But it's like you were saying, the whole, let me have a minute. It's not even like, so many things we say are like when we've discussed like bullying and stuff like that, it's like that's a bad thing to do, like as a person, obviously, but we also hate it because it's bad gameplay. And that's sort of another thing. Like, not only is it bad because like they're going to be less inclined to want to deal with her, but also just as a like human being respect thing. Like, just if someone in life is like, hey, can I, just have a minute, like, unless it's like an emergency, or something.
Like, no, you cannot have a minute. We need this now. But there was time, man. Most of these wounds aren't healed the night of a vote out.
Right. Like, there was, there was no reason. There was no real reason to, and I get like wanting to get that instant, like, hey, let's talk. But once they say like, look, can we just deal with this later? Like, do that.
Yeah, like, you're not a married couple. You can go to bed angry. Nothing's going to be wrong here. There's plenty of time for this. But no, she just has this desperate need to be liked. And it's probably because, especially from these people, these are the people that she liked. And I'm guessing she was driven by a little bit of guilt. But sorry, just go ahead, try. But when you hear no, learn to take it as an answer. And I know, we, on our site, there are at least some people, maybe just one person, in fact, with a great color in her name, purple something, was saying Zeke didn't look good in this situation either, or you got to toughen up into the game. But I don't know, like, this is a moment I feel like most people will give you for being a little salty, because it's not like he's blowing up at people. It's not like he comes back at camp and just starts tearing into people, or like for instance, like Tina in Blood versus Water,
or like Whitney and well, not Keith because he was gone, but like in South Pacific, the like, you disgust me. You're like, he was just like, yo, I'm gonna go chill with the bro who voted with me and like cool off.
Yeah, and they figure out where we're at.
They even did the like, oh, good, good move, guys. Wow, that was great. Hats off to you, Figgy. Which I was like, no, guys, she did nothing. She
didn't get voted out, so I guess
she did more than Taylor, I guess, in that whole move. In that she was present while they talked to Michaela, but that was not her move.
But I don't fault them for not recognizing the
moves
that were made, because if they had, they wouldn't have been blindsided. But and they did the right thing. They did that, and then we are going to go off here and feel the human emotion associated with this. They did the gameplay thing and coming down. Let us do this. And you don't get to interrupt that. And if you do, you don't get to get pissy about it. And I love that, not to play victim, but I'm totally about to play victim. And I will say one thing in Hannah's credit is that she made a good joke about it on Twitter several months later. So, she has some self-awareness now, or at least can recognize that in herself when, you see it back. And I got to say, it's not uncommon for somebody that's incredibly social awkward to do well in social media. Just throwing that out there is maybe something I've recognized. And also maybe she, a big part of communication, and my wife will laugh about me saying this, is not just the words you say, but body language and all of that. Maybe it was too dark for her to pick up on that. But, there were the words like "not right now," and then Adam bringing it back. Is this, "We will still talk to you, but leave, please."
Adam as the mediator really kind of cracked me up on that when he's just like, "Hannah, he says not right now. Can you please just leave him alone?" Like, it wasn't even like about him. It was just like, he was like Zeke's like bodyguard.
And I gotta say, like, I've been in that where it's like, we've got a minute to talk, and then predictably it goes poorly. Not obviously in Survivor or even in like other world situations, just basically with one person, and that person probably knows what they want to fight. Anyway, so yeah, that was, oh man, it was just like head slapping, just. And honestly, I think it was good television, though. And I think it tells us a lot about Hannah. Like, do you think that this is something that she'll, like, miraculously gain a hold of throughout this game?
I mean, I guess it's possible, but it would, like, take some time. I think it's more of something that you gain if you play again.
Yeah, I think that. And
it's
also,
a tougher move.
Yeah. A confidence you gain as you get older as a human being is another part. The other thing is, it's just between this and the vote thing is just the damage she's done in the eyes of those around her, right? Like, so even if she does make a remarkable turnaround, like Aubrey did, people still see her maybe as that
indecisive, like exactly what hurt Aubrey.
Yeah, the needy person that she was at the beginning. So, yeah. All right, so that was how the episode began. Let's talk about how it ended. How did you feel about Paul going home?
It was fun. It was not. If nothing else, it stopped. The unfortunate downward trend we were having there. I mean, at least Lucy wasn't in danger. That'd be a look.
That was my prediction. The thing about doing predictions on a show is sometimes I use it as a forum to make jokes or make points, and that's and then I just lose. Unlike you, who is like 2-0 after the start of the season.
Who would have? Well, doing what? Nobody.
Preseason doesn't matter.
No, I just said nobody got Mari, right? Like,
so not 2-0, but you have 2-1, right? That's right.
Yes,
solid.
And considering I did very poorly last time, but anyway, if people don't care that much about that, yeah, I mean, it was we like Ken and David, so I was glad to see something they wanted to have happen.
Yeah, and I think it just shows the strength of the show and how well they can tell a story, because they introduced this last episode and we got the full arc of enough of explanation of why Paul would go, and moreover why would we feel good about it, right? Like it's a little odd that like in an episode where he's being set up as like near death, which I mean it wasn't that bad, it could have been, I'm not undermining it, he wasn't portrayed as sympathetic at all, and that's because they're setting up this. They want us to feel good about what happened, and I did. A, because I didn't really like him that much, and B, it seems to benefit the people that I do like. But yeah, so I think that it was a satisfying way to end. Because I gotta say, I think Paul's act would have gotten really stale really quickly. Although it probably already did. Obviously, some of that's edited. If he had been more successful, we might have gotten better things out of him. But as people have pointed out on our site, he was one of the big the people to really buy into the theme of the season, and that's annoying. So yeah, I think in the end, it was a satisfying episode to see Paul go.
Yeah. I mean, he was the one with the whole like getting milk delivered by a drone thing, which is like, first of all, millennials can't afford same-day delivery. That's ridiculous. Then what, like, does he think we don't go to grocery stores? And like, why is he walking to I'll walk to the grocery store if I happen to live walking distance to it, but not if I'm buying milk, because milk is heavy because I buy it by the gallon and I'm very small.
Not if you're Paul. He could lift 2 jugs as long as there's no balance beam.
Well, yeah.
Because then he'd need Chris. So, yeah, I think, we both are, relatively satisfied with it being Paul, and especially it not being Ken or David, which makes, I think, the question a little more difficult to answer of whether it was a good move to do that. Because I think, it's obvious for something like, yeah, it was a great move because we wanted it to happen.
Yeah.
But with all that and recognizing our bias, do you think it was a good move for Jessica and Sunday and the other person to flip the vote?
It's tricky because like a lot of people have been pointing out like, well, who cares if like the boys went together because it's alliance of 6 and you're 3 and 3, and it's like, right, but I don't think that was the concern. I don't think it was like, yes, the boys in our 6 only might align with just those 3, and then which it's like the issue. I think why they were why she brought it up is because the vote was Cece, and like they just voted out a woman before, and Ken and David exist even if they're not clicking with those guys. So that's why she's like, you guys aren't trying to do like an all guys thing where you guys are just voting out the women, right?
Right, and why would you ever assume like these 9 people are the last configuration until the merge?
Yeah. Like, so I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are down on it as a move, but I mean, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's not what he meant. Like, he didn't say what he meant. And I'm like, but that's the information she has. And the information she has is not like, oh, yeah, I would tell you, I would give you a heads up that they're talking about that. It's, oh, I would say you're on your own. That's not even an implication. That's saying, oh, yeah, that's saying if they wanted to do an all guys thing, that's what I would do. So, like, yeah. And here's the other thing. It's not like it was Chris or it's not like Paul is the super strong, really important in challenges type guy. Like Cece did terrible in that challenge, sure, yes, walked very slowly, but that's also like that's one of those things where it's like, oh man, they did so bad in that challenge, like Darnell messed up with the goggles, so we better vote on. It's like that's not gonna like come up again, or if it does, he will have learned from that mistake. Like that is a fixable mistake. And
like she did the task, and she did it really poorly, right? Yeah. Like, not same there. She lost that challenge, but it's not like Paul excelled in it. It's not like Paul's been excelling in anything. So yeah, from that perspective, no, I agree. In fact, like I was a little bewildered when people were saying that it was a good move, and I think the primary one was both or bad moves. Sorry, Rob and Steven. And obviously, they don't get the extra day of thinking about it as we do, which I've done nothing but think about this.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. That's all I've thought about.
But it's like I don't think that was the only reason they flipped because of what Paul said. I think that was the straw that broke the back. I think they've been flipping around in their mind about the things that Ken had been saying to them, the things that they've been feeling themselves. If they were otherwise feeling like 50-50 valued partners in this alliance, then him saying that one thing, I don't think would have managed to. They would have been like, whoa. But maybe they would even go talk to Brett or Chris. I think that confirmed a feeling that they had, and that was that they were not equal members of this alliance. The men folk got to go over here and talk strategy and then lay down the law of who it was going to be, and you guys got to go along with it. And, pardon them for deciding, you know what, no, that's not what I came to Survivor to do. And I especially didn't do it for somebody of as little value as Paul. It'd be one thing if he was out there like the actual real leader of the tribe and doing stuff. It's like, well, that's the meat shield I want to hide behind. It's like, he's going to take us in directions we don't want to go. Maybe they weren't comfortable with the fact that this whole 6 versus 3 had been made so clear by, say, arrogant people like Paul. And that wasn't the way they wanted to play Survivor. They came to play for themselves. So, they went out there and took control of it. And,
It's also interesting to me. People have been very much being like, oh, it's Jessica's move. Jessica did that. Jessica heard that and she made that decision. Jessica. And not like, I think she's definitely, at least what we're seeing on TV, is probably sort of the ringleader of the 3 women, at least, again, at least what we're seeing, but a lot of that could just be that she found the legacy advantage, But like, we've seen situations where one person gets an idea and is like, oh, should we flip? Should we do that? And their alliance mates talk them down. And they're like, no, probably not. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, I can't, it's not coming to me, but like, I know that's,
sure,
stuff that's happened. And super common. So like, obviously like Sunday and Lucy were like down.
Yeah, they
You
heard that.
know.
And it's like, yeah, I've been feeling kind of hanky about this too. And I do want to say, like, Paul's misstep there, it's not like an invention of the show. It's not just like they picked up a really good moment and told the story there. They're in the bonus videos. Sunday brings it up. It's like, yeah. And then Paul said this to Jessica. So I do think it was a real turning point, but a turning point of, feelings that had been creeping in. And, some of it I think is Ken kind of pulling them aside. It's like, so what does Paul do around here again? Is that the way you feel? Enough to make them start thinking about it. And I do think that to your point, the fact that Sunday and Lucy turned so quickly from what was, a very safe and easy vote to this, which, carries a good amount of uncertainty. I just think, uncertainty that is maybe worth it. It suggests, they weren't feeling appreciated enough in their alliance. How the heck were the three of them talking so, out in the open and away from the other, members of their so strong core 6 alliance? It's like clearly Brett and Chris were doing their own thing and Paul's doing his own thing. That's not a very good alliance. So maybe they wanted to, flip it up and get an alliance more to their liking. Will it work out? I don't know, because it's a risk. But risk is okay if you feel like this person and this group that I had because I threw it together and, the first couple of days out of panic, maybe it's not the best one for me. Especially when you hear one of the members of that saying, you guys would be on your own if that ever happens. We're not doing it, but maybe. Like it was especially rich hearing Rob Cesternino call it out. It's like, that's like how you made your whole name, dude.
Right. The Alex being like, and he did say a little bit like that, at least he interpreted it the way that Paul said it, whereas I don't think Steven did. Not that this is like a know-it-all's reaction podcast, so we won't get into that too much, but that would be sad. But like, it's Alex, like, it's not like Alex straight up was like, yes, I'm going to, like, here's the order of how things are going. It was more like, so Jen and Heidi are really close. So like, if he gets down to it and like, I want immunity, like, sucks for you, man. Like, and so he's like, oh, I don't enjoy that as an option. So I'm going to get rid of you.
Yeah, because like the alternative is if, they say, oh, you know what? That's okay, Paul. It's 3 versus you 3. And then you miss your opportunity. Now I will say the one thing is like, and I think looking way down the line, which I think is way too early for that. Mm-hmm. Paul is obviously a more desirable finals opponent than Ken is. So they have aligned with, somebody who seems to be more likely to beat them. But I don't know. I imagine Chris would be equally, imposing, especially if you're out there and you don't get to see the edit.
Like use David as your finals guy.
Exactly. And maybe you just use the 3 of you and get somebody out against, a pretty obvious target like Ken. So I think this is the segment of the episode we should talk about Ken. So what was the better part? Ken fishing, shirtless throwing things, talking about the richness and crispness of vinyl?
I know. I was like bummed when we got this footage of like Paul shirtless fishing, and I'm like, why see this when we could be seeing Ken do anything?
And then they gave you Ken, and that's why. See, it's a comparison, right? It's like,
yes.
And here you go. In fact, like I almost wonder if that like went into the makeup of the tribe, because it's like not a whole lot of lookers in that tribe.
But when there is,
I know, and it's just like, hey, make him look that much better. And I mean, far be it for me, dude in his late 30s who totally went to sea to like, criticize other members of our generation. But like, I feel in the past, there was a few more silver foxes or, like Milfy types to represent people my age. But then it's like Ken, who is, barely Gen X, and then, the doughy old people.
I mean, like Savage and Terry, like Cambodia, older version of them, are both like better than almost everyone else.
Yeah, and I think honestly it's just because of the concentration, right? Because it's 6 people really. Because like it's fine. He's got, probably. I haven't been looking because it can. How can you notice? Rachel obviously is fit, and then Lucy's a bodybuilder. So it's usually just like those 6 types are probably usually spread out amongst 2 tribes. But I do feel, to almost skip ahead, it's like it's another example of the show like putting their thumb on the scales to really emphasize the difference between millennial and Gen X. It's like they were just so desperate to do young versus old that it's like, yeah, well, we got to make these particular group of slightly older people seem that much older. But that's off topic. We should be talking about Ken. Because, I mean, not that, like, say, audio podcasting of other people speaking is the best medium delivery of Ken. But do you think the backlash is starting at all? You know, people are getting tired of the Ken?
Well, we know there's at least one in our community, and just know, Shark, we're all against you.
Yeah, you can leave anytime.
There's a lot we agree on. You know, I know who your avatar is, for one, and I think a lot of our commenters don't. But yeah, no, that Ken hate Paul Love will not stand.
That's right. You and your Poochie Santa can go die on your way back to your home planet.
But, I will say one thing about Ken that I think was very telling was during the tribal council when he, you know, does his whole wax poetic thing. Like, they show Brett looking like, oh, here it goes again. And, like, not to stereotype, but if Ken's not able to win over Brett, that's a bad sign.
Yeah, look, he just might not be Brett's type. It's possible.
That's true.
Right?
That's people. Ken is everyone's type. We've talked about this.
I know, but I guess not. I will say
have proof. The whole Kinsey scale.
The point of Brett, I think, laughing, actually, I do think was a little illuminating, and this, might be the part of the one hater's ears perking up. I'm guessing this isn't the first time they've heard Ken go on and on a little bit more grandiosely than necessary about a topic, and especially if he's a guy that's not in your alliance. That could get tiresome, like maybe it's a little like, listen to Coach in a such much more palatable package. But it also kind of goes hand in hand with the thing that I've theorized that, he just kind of makes them feel, a little bit smaller being in his presence. I can get that. Ego is a thing. It's why, there's no Kens on this podcast. I just feel weird about it.
But sorry, I just while you were talking, I thought of like a very dirty joke, and now I've been laughing to myself about it the whole time. Continue.
You can share. This is a
oh, you said a more palatable package, and I put my
yes.
package anytime. Hey.
Phrasing. But perhaps the most Ken of the moments, because he's not just a pretty face or a palatable package, would be when he was, opening up his soul about the harmful Ken doll comments.
Yeah, I mean that was funny because, I get it, because I feel like as a kid when that's happening, it's not like, oh, you're attractive and your name is Ken. It's just, oh, your name is Ken and Ken is a doll. Like, I don't think it's like the way the millennials are doing it is like, wow, who is this like Greek god? And oh wow, his name's Ken. How funny. That's perfect. Like, I don't think that's what was happening on the schoolyard. I
suspect he probably didn't have the abs at the time. I'm just throwing that out there.
Probably not. I did definitely laugh like out loud when he was like, and the worst thing you can be called as a boy is like a doll with no penis, and it's just like, I mean, I guess, that fragile masculinity.
No, it's accurate, I imagine. Like, look at Toy Story 3 and all the stuff that Ken had to deal with. The actual Ken doll. It's like, I'm not a girl's toy.
Plus, then he and Barbie broke up. This whole thing.
Yeah, it's like, you need to recognize my masculinity because it's so, fragile, as you say. No, it's great because we get, like, all of, like, the woe is me, outcast, nerdy, backstory. But in a package that looks a lot better than, say, Cochrane. So, I like this. I like this new form of nerd that they've, this damaged young boy that they presented to us. It's like the movie version of that character. I was like, oh, we'll cast you.
It's Rachel Lee Cook as the, like, horrible outcast.
Exactly. I don't want to watch actual nerds.
Although I will defend She's All That weirdly, briefly in the middle of this podcast, just in the sense that at least like they made her weird. It wasn't like, wow, she's so ugly. It's like I saw that in real life, and like even in middle school, like I remember thinking like of certain friends, I'm like, huh, they're actually like very pretty, but nobody pays attention to them because they're like the nerdy kids and they're like not actually like, so they're not popular, but like you should be doing a lot better than you are.
Yeah.
And Rachel Lee Cook was wearing overalls and painted all the time and was weird. So
and she needed corrective for her vision. So
and everyone knows if you need glasses, that's just disgusting.
Yeah, no, nobody ever wants to see that. Four eyes.
My appeal went way down after I got glasses.
Yeah, but it was a reverse Rachel Lee Cook. She's not that.
Yeah. Oh God, she seemed okay, but now it's disgusting.
It's like that Seinfeld episode with the lighting. That's a Gen X show that you wouldn't know at all. All right, so obviously the story that's been told for the past 2 episodes, the battle between Ken and Paul for control of the tribe, and how Paul's leadership is going against Ken's vibe. How much do you think it's actually legitimate that Paul was this larger than life figure that was getting in the way, and how much of it do you think it's just because like Paul and Ken just didn't get along?
I feel like it's like a little column A, little column B. Because I feel like Paul and Ken definitely don't get along, just because I feel like they're such different people. Plus, in a season all about age and generation, they are the farthest apart on that track.
They're basically a generation apart.
Yeah, yes. Because let's be real, Ken is 33. Every definition I have read in Millennials puts him as an older millennial. This season is bullshit. But sorry, I know you're trying not to edit this podcast.
I won't.
Sorry, kids.
On cue, somebody walks to the door. No.
Don't.
But yeah, no, exactly.
But like, okay, Ken is 33. Paul's what, like 52?
I think 51 or 52, something like that.
52. Yeah. And so that's like, think about like Will and the now departed Mari. Will is 18. Mari is 31. Like, and that sounds like a huge gap, right? And like, wow, how could they possibly relate to each other? And that's the same. Paul and Ken are possibly, I think, farther. Math is really hard.
They're farther apart than Will and Mari, yes. Like,
Thank you. Yes, they are farther apart.
Paul is literally old enough to be his father. And obviously, it's not impossible for people of different ages to get along in Survivor, no matter what this theme Mike wants you to know about. But I think that might actually, I think it actually might speak to a bit of the reason why Ken has, been on the bottom. Like, it's so weird that, a freaking god like Ken is he's not fitting in. It's because these aren't his people. I doubt he hangs out with a lot of these old people. I thought he was doing that when he was, wakeboarding in Hawaii or whatever. I mean, obviously, he's a dad now, but he's not, a dad to grown-up children.
And he's basically, even though the daughter's older, he's basically, a new dad. They don't have any because that wouldn't fit in their theme, but half of those millennials could totally be parents, age-wise, and it wouldn't even be weird. Michelle.
It'd be horrifying though with these particular millennials.
Yes, but age, Michelle and Zeke are 28. Mari was 31.
Sierra is a millennial.
Yeah,
and a mother of 2. It's obviously possible.
Granted, she started early, but still, you don't have to. I don't know. You having it doesn't necessarily. I don't even remember what I was saying anymore. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying can't get back to the theme. It's I think it's that could speak to the tension between those two, because I think Paul, amongst them, everyone there, was most invested in this whole old people doing it this way and young people that way, and Ken is probably more that way ain't so bad. To the point we saw that in the first episode, right?
Exactly.
When Paul is let's tell some stupid millennial jokes that'll be a great weekly segment for our podcast. Ken was saying hey maybe let's just chill and respect people and treat them like the competition that they are, and I think that might speak to why getting rid of Paul was so important, because he might be kind of like the Philip figure in the cast, and that, everything is going to be this way. It's going to be old people work ethic, not out there gaming and all of that. Not that I think Ken is necessarily a big gamer, but like shutting down conversation. This 6 is all we need, and let's keep being the grumpy old people, because he's an old person. So much more. So I think those are probably reasons. So I do think some of it was legitimate, because I do think Paul was probably being a bit of lording over people with his position, because if he wasn't, I don't think the women would have flipped. So there's some evidence in that aspect. Let's flip it to the big hyped thing for the episode. Next week on, and all the commercials throughout, we got a summit. That was sure worth advertising, huh?
Yeah, that was lame as hell.
That was nothing. That was nothing.
So
that wasn't anything. And obviously, they won't know that it's nothing when they decide to do it, but it was nothing.
That was like some old school Survivor stuff.
Yeah, and even an old school Survivor, when they'd have stuff like that, there'd be an agenda. You guys are going to go do this and talk about this or structure this. Usually it's about the structure and a pending merge or a swap that's coming up. But it's like they just like, hey, get together, hang out, and have some sandwiches. Like there was nothing. There was no purpose.
There was nobody found like a clue that they had to give to someone else. There was not like. There was, it wasn't like, oh, one of you will stay behind. Like, I don't know. It was such garbage.
Yeah, this is basically the equivalent of like when I believe in Guatemala, like one of the tribes just rowed a boat up to the other tribe.
Right, they had like a pool party.
Yeah, yes, that was it. Yeah, in their little pool without the crocodiles. That's all this was, and it was just like, God, that was useless. And I understand maybe they try and like, oh, let's kind of get the generations together in a social situation, blah blah blah. But for one, don't market it. It was nothing. It was less than nothing. For two, no, like give them something to do. Even because what did we get out of this? We got David yet again pledging fealty to anybody within a couple minutes.
How terrible that it was like I was like, no, David, there are so many better matches for you out there.
I'm glad you latched on to the power and thought that
don't give your love away to the first guy who smiles at you. The one is out there.
Yeah, and then it's like it's all so he could set up as maybe in the future these people will help me take down Paul. Oh wait, yeah, that's nothing. So that
was a good I think that was a good move on their part how they did that. But David and Cece for being like, yeah, Paul is like not actually bad mouthing him even and being like, yeah, we hate Paul, but like being like, yeah, he's not on the apps, he is in charge and blah blah,
Yeah, and putting a bit more target on him and maybe helping ease the obvious one that's on their alliance partner Ken. But like that was just nothing. Look, something could come from it, Yeah, no scene ever makes Survivor unless it means something down the road. But so I can't fully judge it, but it's just like I can certainly judge the next time on Survivor. Make your advertising about like the fight with Anna. Make it about the battle between Ken and Paul or Dave and Paul. Don't make it about eating peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, that is something I do every day. It is not interesting.
Well, that's how we're gonna hype this episode of this podcast. 2 people will get together and eat sandwiches. I would never get together to eat with you, though. Real talk.
That's fair.
So we'll leave the summit and we'll go to the other tribe, the Millennials. So after some time calming down, not in the middle of the night when they're angry, Adam approaches Michaela to let her know, the lay of the land. What did you think of his approach?
I mean, it was logical, and she doesn't like Figgy, and this is another thing. I mean, I don't want this to be like a recap of Know-It-Alls because that's stupid. But
here we are.
Really didn't I found that was weird. Where he's like, yeah, okay. I will say Stephen put about being the 5th in a tight when it's tight pairs can be good, but I don't know Jay.
I don't get the impression that she's the 5th.
Yeah, A, first of all. But and Jay and Michelle, I don't think are even really a pair. They're just the ones with a brain and not making out. Like that is a marriage of convenience if there ever was. Like it's it's called the Triforce. Like Jay came with it with like he is Taylor's bro and Figgy is the girl. That's their like they would go as a final three. Like it would not be Jay ain't like drawing rocks for Michelle. Not that happens at the final four anyway, but like did not like he's not going to force a tiebreaker. They would just vote Michelle out. That's what would happen. So you don't need to have that fifth person, to be the side person. And like, yeah, sure, having a tight four is all well and good in this beginning stuff, but if you're trying to build a new line, there's no reason the rest of them can't become tight. Like, yeah, they can be friends.
Speaking quickly of rocks, goddamn the Gen X tribe for being so boring that we didn't get to see them drawing rocks, which almost certainly were purple. Right?
They were definitely purple.
Like, is it so freaking hard for you guys? Wants to bring purple rock back into the mainstream lexicon?
That's so rude.
I know, but you know what? That way. Only the people that know will know the ref. Yeah. This is like our best, speakeasy. The best thing. But I didn't really like the way Adam was handling it. Obviously it's the move you do when you talk to her, but I feel like he was talking at her a bit too much. Look,
that might just
strategizing in Survivor's difficulty. Yeah, I know. Look at them there. But yeah, and strategizing is tough. You have limited time and all of that, but that's why it's important to praise the people that do it well, because it gave me a bit of a vibe of like a friendlier version of the way Nick approached people last year. Mm-hmm. To the point where like even if what you're saying is completely accurate and logical, you're making me feel like you think I'm stupid by saying it the way you are, and screw you, buddy. I'm not going to do it. And then if I, sit back and a bunch of other things kind of break my way, I can win Survivor. Like, that's how it works, right?
Also, like, one thing, too, that I was thinking, and I don't know, people probably won't agree with this, but, like, I feel like, on the one hand, you don't want to be doing everything last minute, but on the other hand, considering that they thought they had a plan and that plan changed at the end because people go with the last thing they heard, like maybe wait till you lose a challenge.
Yeah, I think you
let Figgy annoy her more. Mm-hmm. Let them clash more. Let her remember why she doesn't like Figgy. Don't do it right after when like things are maybe okay. And like, yeah, that vote went well and we had 7-3, so now it's 7-2. I'm fine for a while. Let those cracks form. Give it a chance.
Or like you plant some seeds, but you don't necessarily need to walk somebody through the whole strategy. And don't you see it? And if you don't see it, just kind of like, they all seem to be hanging out a lot. It's weird that we're here, Just it's that like sort what Ken did
about Paul. He wasn't really going, at least that we saw, wasn't really being like, we need to get together. You girls need to flip so we can vote out Paul. Those boys, they're going to be together. They're a tight three. They're going to turn against you. They might recruit you because that wouldn't make sense. Like, it's just sort of like, wow, Paul, he always talks about going out fishing, but does he ever bring any?
Here we go.
Does he ever bring anything back? Hi.
Hi. Hello, Christopher. You really need to go to sleep sometimes. We got your naps are a problem. Do you want to say hi, Christopher?
Yes.
You want to say hi to Emily?
Hi.
Hi, Christopher.
Who's your favorite survivor?
Superman.
Superman, I think, would win most of the challenges. He'd be a target, but I think he'd always be immune. Unless,
Those are nice Superman pajamas, Christopher.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Wait.
Do you have any questions, Christopher? Pikachu. That's a good question.
Pikachu. Mm-hmm.
All right. Are you going to go to bed now?
Yes.
Okay. Good night, buddy.
Good night.
Sleep tight.
Look at that. Usually we get this done earlier in the podcast, and then he makes a second appearance. So I think this is good. We got that one.
Good to go. Oh. Anyway, sorry.
That's all right. What were we talking about? Anyway,
I can't resist. What were we? Oh, letting like
Just the way that
making the
Ken was doing it,
argument.
yeah. He's
Yeah,
just talking to Jessica's like, how many fish has Paul caught? And she's like, kind of like, oh yeah, I guess it's kind of 0, isn't it? Yeah.
So then you do the like, wow, yeah, I mean, man, Taylor and Figgy, that's getting deeper. Like, wow, they really hang out with Jay and Michelle a lot too. And if you really want to, like, it seems like they're bringing in Will, you know, they're hanging out with Will or whatever. Like, just you
Yeah,
know,
that seems like a tight fivesome. Like just some of that, and maybe hopefully you can tag team, right? And Zeke, almost like not even like you're like pushing it to Michaela, but you're just kind of talking amongst the people, and you guys kind of throw it back, and it's like, oh. And then later maybe you have that conversation. But yeah, I feel like he was pushing the cell a bit too much, and it could be fine, but I do think that it will require a bit smoother a touch if he wants to be successful, because it's important to note that he wasn't successful in his first attempt. So clearly there's probably flaws in his abilities to, get people on board. And I think this is a flaw that a lot of people sometimes have that are like, super fans, strategic players. It's like other people will behave in the way that I behave and think of things through rationally. But you have to, other people are motivated by different reasons, and just kind of, compare that to the way, say, Michelle was able to operate.
Right. And that's one thing that could be good about the fact that he did get started a little earlier and they didn't go to tribal council and stuff, is that they have time to forget about that happening. And, maybe it'll work as a seed if they don't go to tribal again for like 6 more days or something like that.
Yeah, it's like you're on the bottom. People are expecting you to just speak in self-interested ways. So
that's
I think
where you can pull in Hannah, since she wants to work with you, since she's someone who's allegedly in with the group. If she starts talking about it, maybe.
Yeah, and clearly she's so ride or die that you need her. No. So let's jump back or to the end there. Jeff Probst's thoughts on the texting habits of generations. That was just a brilliant moment of television, right?
There were so many things I hated about it. For one, Jeff, I don't know what 20-somethings you text anymore, but we all stopped using you as an abbreviation in like middle school. Like once we stopped having to use T9 word, like, and had real keyboards on our phones, like all of my friends, like there are certain abbreviations you use, and some of it's like ironic, but like you'll use like like it's acronyms. It's not like shortened words.
Yeah,
it's what's still used.
Well, it's also this thing, like the whole thing I've been arguing this whole time is like, yeah, you keep making this about millennials as though Generation X was never on ICQ, man.
Right, like yeah, like I mean, when like people I know, like, because there was definitely a time where I definitely typed like that, but that was literally like middle school. That was like 8th grade when we were chatting on AIM, like on AOL Instant Messenger. It wasn't, which is something that I think your people used too.
That's right.
Like,
we're the most entrepreneurial generation of all time. We invented all this internet stuff that you're railing against on your show.
Yeah, and like texting, like, yeah, when we all had to hit the same button like 4 times to get to maybe you would. But
then
like,
it actually is more efficient. Congratulations, Jeff.
Well, once you have keyboard, like I don't even like to use the predictive text iPhones have, because I feel like it's slower for me. Like I can just type quicker. Even my mom, who is a baby boomer, who's 65, and sorry, Mom, she doesn't know this exists, so we're fine. But like, she even texted me this morning because she knew I'd watched the episode late. Was like, she's like, I know old people who use you, like the letter U, and young people who don't. And I'm like, yeah. Like I remember in high school when I was babysitting, by that point I was already not texting that way. And the mothers of the kids I babysat for, they texted like that. And you know what generation they are from? X. Generation X.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, what makes it more annoying is, that this is Jeff's ham-handed way of trying to force this theme. And, before the season ever started, as last season was ending, it's just like, this is going to be awful. This is going to be awful as they keep trying to make these discussions about generations. And that was the most egregious episode or example of it. And it's as I was getting to earlier. I do think that they really were interested in showing the difference between ages to the point where I think the motivation, and some of this is in like Probst's preseason chats and all that, is to be more millennial. So I think they focused on the millennials. We need more millennials applying. There's not enough. And also, like that's like an easy way to draw clicks and stuff in the internet,
right.
is do some stupid piece about millennials. Either, some New York Times trend piece of how they're awful, or, BuzzFeed quiz type thing. But, it's a buzzword that'll work. So that's where they put their thought. That's why that tribe is so much more interesting. And then for Gen X, I don't think they thought about it at all. They just old, but not so old. They can't be as old as Nicaragua. We want some 30s and younger 40s. But they also all need to seem kind of old and cranky. Like, where's like the 30-year-old web person? Like they try to act like this is a mystery to the generation who invented and grew up on it. That's our thing, you goddamn millennials. Like,
hey, it's not our fault. It's the Generation X people who made the damn show.
I know, yeah, and what's great about it is Jeff Probst gathers the old folk around, and he's going to tell you how the young people of today think. Because he is older than Paul. Jeff Probst is 2 years older than Paul. So, yes.
Which, it's some devil witch magic if you look at those two side by side.
I know, but it's like, you be the voice of the young people, Jeff, and educate us about what they're like. It's ridiculous. And I'm talking so loud that I've got a visitor again. Do I need to be more quiet? The theme of the season is really bothering me, Superman.
I'm Superman.
You're not Superman? All right. Good night, Christopher. This is what happens when I rant.
Simmer down, Andy. Simmer down.
Take it down. Babies are trying to sleep, but not really. They're trying to stay awake so they don't sleep.
That's the dream when you're 3.
I know. It's really, you need to understand that sleeping is awesome. That's an old person thing to say. But I do think, just so they could really do this millennial stuff, they couldn't get any 30-year-olds that are also, on Reddit or whatever. This goddamn podcast is run by 2 old people, and, we're doing all this stuff. Like, the differences shouldn't be that drastic. But no, they had to get, Midwestern lawyer type, and they had to get, 50... is he even Gen X, really? Poochie Santa. They had to get, a farm girl lawyer, and, Midwestern, all lovely folks.
But, they keep talking about how they worked with their hands, and I'm like, that's not a Gen X thing. Like, have you seen Office Space?
Yeah, we're the middle children of history, man. Like, we're the ones that, talked about the McJob. So, they don't care about Gen X. It's what they should have really done, but they needed that millennials buzzword to get people talking about them in other media, because it's, as a show that's been around for 2 decades, nobody really talks about it anymore. It should have just been generation gap. And then, yes, you have your stupid young people, and you can get all the millennials you want. But then you're not setting up this false dichotomy of we're going to call it Gen X, but not let it be like Gen X at all, and really make them seem so much older than they should be.
Right.
And that's led to this season feeling like such an imbalance, and not in the way that like Nicaragua was an imbalance that these people are near the grave and these people are young, but more they chose a bunch of dull ass old people because they wanted them to seem older.
Yeah. One of the worst parts about Mari going home is the fact that we won't have, at the merge, her and Ken connecting. I'm like, they are 2 years apart. At least Ken's only, 5 years older than Zeke and Michelle, so at least we have that. But,
And, David isn't that much older, right?
I think he's, 42.
Is he?
Yeah,
but, I just assume he's immature because he writes for Family Guy.
Hey. Which is weird because I didn't think they'd let a manatee play on the show, but there you go. He's skinny for a manatee. It's weird.
Actually, so that rant kind of leads into our first mailbag question of the week. This one comes in from our friend MN Scout and BK, who is
Ken's #1 fan.
Yeah, is making this season so much more delightful than it even is on its own.
I don't know what we'd do without her.
Yeah, honestly, maybe the show would be more dull. What Survivor themes were the most successful and least? And then within our answer, she wants to know: do you think they impacted gameplay or just the sound bites, just the TV show itself? For now, I'll let you go first with what you think was the most successful.
Okay, so a little tricky. I'm going to start not necessarily with what I think is the most successful, but just on something I find interesting. So, as a theme, race wars was a terrible idea. Don't do that. That's weird. No, they did not call it race wars. Of course, we call it that. But, awkward. And yes, it almost destroyed everything in the sense that they were worried, like, oh God, all the white people are winning.
Are going to systematically eliminate the minorities, which would be the best reflection of America in itself. But,
that's the thing. People talk about the sexism in Survivor, and it's like, yeah, it's really just the sexism in society. So, tug collar. That's not buttoned, so that's useless. But on the other hand, like, we are definitely Cook Island supporters here, and it, doing that thing made a much more diverse cast. Yeah, sure, people point to Fiji, but Fiji was supposed to also be race wars until they realized that was a terrible idea. It also, once they maybe gamed the system a little bit, it ended up with a great narrative of the not white people taking over the white people. It was great, because suck it, Candace and Adam, you're terrible. Especially you, Adam.
And like Roswolf on our site talked about this a bit, and really pointed out, it's like, yeah, it not only like made them more diverse, but it allowed those minorities to operate in a place of normality, right? Like their being minorities didn't separate them. That didn't create the otherness that so often leads to first boots. And I think it did lead to a few good scenes, as right? Pointed out that we had the interesting discussion of how Asians feel this pressure to like represent their race and that sort of thing. And then you had all the awkwardness of the white people, which I think leads to why there's such an uproar about that season or that idea. The theme is despite the fact that race is like a defining characteristic of American society, white people really don't like to talk about it. And I think, to your point of like why it's a bad idea, maybe this, not so nice competitive competition where you this is not maybe not the format. It forced where you're forced to eliminate people on the weakest of
maybe like
things.
Amazing Race, where it's the game that eliminates them or something. Also, of course, there's the problem where just only having 4 categories and the like confusion of like is like Latino / Hispanic, like even and all the like it's different for African American in the sense that like assuming you've been here for a while, the actual culture was raised because they were enslaved, but like whereas Hispanic, like different countries have different cultures, and maybe like and same with Asian, like they didn't have any Indian, South Asian people, Middle Eastern.
No race is monolith, but Asian itself is like that's a bunch of different races.
But like, and then even within that, which is actually was kind of interesting, even within the Asian tribe, Yul and Becky were like, oh, we're both Korean, and like bonded over that, which shows that you really they need to do that season again, but with like 10 tribes.
Which
which would
all
be
of that there shows why Survivor just can't do it.
It can't do it. Yeah.
Even try to do it, you try to like do something like we're gonna really this is a show where we like to talk about making new societies, and again, nothing is more definitional of American society than the blending of various races and cultures. But this isn't the format to discuss this. This is a format where this is a show where you plot against people to vote them out. That's why we call it Race Wars as a joke, because this isn't like a TLC series where everybody just kind of learns to get along. This isn't Kid Nation, for Christ's sake. This is, Survivor, so it's not good there. But also, as you pointed out, all the hashtag problematic. Oh, what about this race? What about this race? So then it's just like becomes this whole thing, and then it's a bad look. And then again, because Yeah, white people really just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, and then I mean, there's even all this stuff with it. You know, you've got Penner is Jewish, and like I think I remember seeing Shireen on Twitter wondering like if that was the reason why he was outcast. Which I think it was because he was old. Everyone else on that tribe.
Yeah, a bunch of young douchebags in him. Plus, you know, we've seen more than once Penner be able to make people feel a little uneasy in his presence. It's one of his gifts.
We have a larger sample size there, but
I think the larger point is that's not the worst theme they've ever had, because there were good outcomes because of it. Outcomes that we haven't gotten to see replicated. No minority groups have done as well as they did in that season. Not even in Fiji, when they had to back off of the divided by race concept. A, because they barely survived the last one, and B, because one of the white competitors left the game right before it started. They had no backups.
White people.
I know, the worst, really. But then you get a case where so they they have very diverse things, and then right away Dreams and Cassandra are otherized. So it's just like it's and that's when we talk about it, it's difficult because diversity can't just mean we have a few non-white people, but forcing them into separation. We're gonna have divorce by having separate by equal locations. That's probably not it either. So I say the most successful theme for me was Second Chances.
Yes, I wasn't even thinking about those, like the All-Star seasons as themes, but yeah, Second Chances was great.
Because obviously for one, letting us be part of the participation and voting in, that was tremendous fun and a great reward for fans in general. But also I think by centering it around, this is my second chance, I really want to do well, I have regrets from before, that's a good thing to build around. And obviously it does get a little tiresome the 50th time somebody's like my second chance, but that's something real. That's a real thing with real consequences. And it's interesting to hear about. And it's personal. It's not just some invented, Jeff says I'm no color because I have a disability. Like, these people are legitimate about wanting a second chance. Most of them, anyway. And that's the other thing. Like, the best people, at least going in, the ones I was most excited about, were the ones that felt like this was their last chance. Like, they were lucky. This is something they've wanted for a while, to correct something that's haunted them. And a lot of them probably started to think like it wasn't going to happen for me. And because of the voting, wasn't sure it was going to happen for them,
Right.
In a way, like not all of them, like a Shireen or a Spencer probably felt like I'm coming back at some point. It's just a matter of when. But even
Spencer and Joe weren't sweating.
Yeah, but even they had I need to do better than last time in a way that other All-Star seasons might not have, because there's some winners, right? It's like, what do I need to do better? So I think that was the best theme they ever had, and it I think it did help gameplay. I know there's also some people that fight over that. It's like, oh, the big moves. Everybody needs to do big moves. Like, why do you hate fun? It's more fun when people on this show are active participants. Maybe it's a little less fun when bartender travel agents sit back and hope things break their way.
We all know Kim was great and is one of we all bow before her, but we also all know One World wasn't good.
Yeah, but also she was active. She was doing things.
Yeah, she was. No one else was.
Yeah. So it's like, and like, is it the best way to play always? I don't care. Like it will be for one of them. It was for Jeremy, who, interestingly didn't do that many big moves. But it's better TV when more people are trying to do things. And I think because they all carried that stain and that regret, they were going to do more. Not every single one of them. There's still going to be people who lay back, but that's for my answer. You got a real answer?
Well, what I was going to say, because I totally wasn't even thinking of like heroes versus villains and second chances as like options. So heroes versus villains was really fun. We talked about that a little bit this summer. Which
is evergreen content. You guys can all go watch that after this.
Yeah. So I'll say, not counting those, I thought Blood versus Water as a half All-Star season is like the best way you can do a half All-Star season, I think. Fan versus favorite, it's just stacked two against them. even though Blood versus Water did still have the 3 returnees at the end, I think that's the most even you can make it, like, because they're familiar with the show, and
it's the best way to do a bad concept.
Yes. And so that was more compelling. I think the issue, with San Juan del Sur was just sort of casting. I feel like if they just tried a little harder, they could probably pull that off if they like really were willing to go for pairs and not like someone who's great who brought someone in their +1.
Yeah. But that probably speaks to how difficult casting is in the first place. It's hard enough to find one person that's great. Now I got to find somebody that's related to them somehow. And so that both halves are great. That might just be impossible. Like a show that does that every season called The Amazing Race. When I watched it, frequently wasn't able to get 2 halves of like exciting. Sometimes they were. And in fact, usually when they were, it's people that weren't related to each other.
Right. It's like, we're best friends and we get along because we're both zany.
Yeah. Not like, this is the brother that, mom and dad always liked better. Worst. What do you think of the worst theme?
Haves and have not. Young versus old.
Yep, there we go. That's the correct answers right there.
Those are it.
It's idiotic to start your season with imbalances that will make it, competitively uninteresting. Who knew? It's almost like if when movies are casting like sports things, they don't make like one awesome team and one sucky team. It's like as much as we on this show and people on the internet maybe not be focused on the fact that the challenge and all that. It's actually a big part of the show and how the narrative is driven because the teams that lose are on it more. And when you win, you don't have to do as much. And when you set something so that one tribe has a superior advantage because they're better fed or better slept or, 20 years younger, that matters.
Yeah, that's...
And then
that's
it. Those are the right answers. Sorry, I don't have anything interesting. I mean, one that like a dark horse terrible theme is what you touched upon. People that know how to play Survivor versus people that don't, because it's the same thing. Yeah. It's the same. You give one side an incredible advantage, it's little less interesting. Who knew? It's almost like people don't tune in to watch sporting events in large numbers between like super good teams and super bad teams. All right, let's move on to our next mail question. This one comes from Mike Hirsch, and this is related to Taylor. He's saying, with Taylor plumbing the depths of dimness this season, who's your favorite dumb Survivor contestant and why? And his answer here was that he thinks Eddie will be a popular choice because we are the people that like to talk about the dog bar Eddie.
Which Matt named. Never forget.
He will never let us forget. No. But he personally says Carter, who, even though he's not 100% certain that he was dumb, although he's pretty sure he was, he doesn't have a lot of justification for liking Carter best, other than he aligned himself with Penner and had tiny eyes. And I think that actually sets up a little thing before, like a little ground rules to put it in here. We don't know if these people are genuinely dumb. I mean, some of them we probably do, but it's more like who was coded dumb by the show.
Right.
Who was the dumb character? Now, I do want to, as a word of caution, maybe you already have your answers, so I didn't caution you about this. But, I mean, the best part of these questions are the conversations that we will start in the comments below. We need to be cautious of this person is dumb because they talk funny. Because they talk in the regional accent of where they're from.
Yeah.
We're better than that. But there still might be some answers dancing around that. So, they need to be dumber than just having an accent is all I'm saying. So who did you get?
They might be both. Well, I mean, I just want to say a little bit of that. I also really enjoyed Carter, but not even, I never really thought of him as being dumb. I enjoyed Carter in the sense that it was like, he was so boring that he flipped all the way back around to being like a meme, and it was amazing. I mean, there was this sauce will live on in my memory for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And it was like, he's just about to talk. Nope, it's over. It's over. That was all.
And it was just, and he hung out with Jeff Kent, who, as a Giants fan, I both love and hate. So that was fun. Yeah,
Don't you
Carter.
hate when sports forces you to like somebody you previously hated?
Well, for this, it was more
I
of
guess
the
it's the other way
opposite.
around, right?
Yeah,
Right.
and then but now they're like letting him come to Giants things again. So it's like, wait, do we like him again? I'm very confused. I like feel like I need to find out how Dodgers fans feel about him, so I know how I can feel about him. Anyway,
Maybe it could be the
also
one thing that unites you guys. You know,
Yeah.
that like
No,
we don't agree on anything except that Jeff Kent is a massive douchebag.
well, there is that. Actually, generally, Giants and Dodgers fans, it used to be agreeing on hating the Phillies, but now the Phillies are garbage. Sorry, Matt. So now it's typically hating the Cardinals together. We both hate the Cardinals.
Sure, but that's not like a unique thing there. That's a unique thing
True.
for all like right-minded people.
But it's also funny because they hate the Cardinals because they always lose to the Cardinals in the postseason, and we hate them because we always beat them. And also, they're the Cardinals, and they're
You guys are so close to finding middle ground there, but you just ruined it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know. I mean, and actually, the thing with Carter is it kind of shows like Survivor will never be as bad as it used to be, simply because it's so much fun to talk about. So yeah, you're saying like Carter himself wasn't that interesting, but he became a meme and joke amongst us. That's extra textual, and I agree. Like this season, even if it ends up being like the Nicaragua 2 that I doomsday predicted, I'll have so much more fun watching it. It does like because this thing and the people commenting and stuff. So whether Carter himself was dumb,
for Ken.
whether he was good, I don't know, but we had fun with him, which is probably kind of speaking to what Mike Hirsch's question's about. I need a ruling before I give my answer because I'm not sure. Does Keith Nail qualify? It kind of gets into that thing I talk about. It's like just because they talk funny, it's not dumb, but you still get those moments of Keith kind of walking in the background shots, or like Jeremy trying to get his attention,
that was so good, and that was live in the room. That moment was insane.
Keith like side alliances.
I guess I'll go back to the house. I think he's qualified because it's not in a way that Wes, his son, who also has an accent and who maybe isn't like he's not an academic, doesn't, because Wes watched the show and had a rough understanding. Keith was there because Wes was there, and then Keith was an interesting character, so they brought him back. Sidelights. So he's not necessarily dumb, like as a person in the real world, but was ignorant of Survivor and therefore therefore was dumb.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the code of hey, get a load of this, delightful rube, in which case then. In which case, it's Keith Nail. Keith Nail is awesome. Keith Nail is great. Beloved. If he doesn't count, I was going to go with Kat.
Kat's a good one too.
I know I'll say for me, this is tough because I don't typically like the dumb character, right? Like that's just not the vibe I'm on. But she has given us a lot, right? Like from the touche to the worrying that she contacted appendicitis to
nobody wants to date anyone who doesn't make the merge, which I guess that turned out to be true.
At least they'll date you for a little bit. Exactly.
They'll do stuff.
So she gave us too much. So she's on my list too. Did you have anybody else?
Kat was who else I had in mind. Then I talked about Eddie. I didn't, like the dog bar was funny, but I don't even it's been discussed. I'm not really a dog person, so that's not endearing to me. That's just stupid. Cool, drinking and dogs. That's somewhere I'm not going to go ever. I'm trying to even think. I mean, I know who's not your favorite, which would be Sean from Borneo, because he makes you angry for being so dumb.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why it's not really my thing, because generally when I see stupid people, they just frustrate me. How are you so stupid?
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I could never be a teacher. I'm too impatient for it. I would just I'd be but it's so obvious. Why are you so dumb?
Yeah, it's the reason why I don't like Nicaragua, because almost all of those people were stupid. So and even the people that weren't were. And that's why I'm not. Everybody thinks San Juan del Sur is gem of the season. No, it was a bunch of stupid people doing stupid things. But Keith Nail is pretty delightful, especially in his second turn. One of the best themes ever in Second Chances. So that's all that we have. Oh, did you have something?
Oh no, I was just doing the snapping again because
it
was so fun.
Keith Nail not paying attention. So those are the mailbag questions that we had for this week. I actually did get a couple of others, but I'm saving them for when John can come back. So we didn't forget you guys.
Because nobody wants financial advice from me.
Exactly. Be like, what not to do? Like,
I actually do just
you fine. Do all right.
Considering my means, I think I am very frugal and responsible.
Yeah, but
second millennial stereotypes.
Yeah, you and Michelle. Michaela.
Michaela.
Yeah. So instead, I thought a question that we could throw out there is, who do you got for the World Series?
I mean, I thought, I didn't actually feel great going into the wild card game. I thought maybe the stuff had run out, but especially, and then, oh God, it was so tense. And Syndergaard was dealing, but looks like the even year bullshit is alive, man.
It is. I guess it's real. How can we even predict against it? 3-run home run in the 9th inning, 0-0 game.
Connor Gillespie. Oh God, sorry everyone who doesn't like baseball. I'm
not
yelled.
Sorry.
Like I screamed, I spun around. I had to rewatch the home run because I missed all the reactions because I was like jumping up in the air. Oh, it was so amazing because that was I was actually feeling anxiety from that game because it was so tight and stressful.
I can relate because the night before the Blue Jays go into extra innings until they hit a 3-run home run. Really, 3 home runs is the way to go if you want excitement.
Yeah. So you know what? I think despite the Cubs being super good, I think we're actually pretty well matched for weakness wise. I think we can take them. Hopefully, knock on wood. So I'm gonna say, and I can't deal with the other side of the NL. I'm just gonna pretend that's
she's
not
pointing
happening.
to the door outside the room where that's all happening, even in her apartment. Yes.
Yeah. There's you can't read
civil
what they
war
all have there, but yeah, it's a rough life. Except I clearly am the better end of it. It's not fair.
It's been rougher for one of you than the other. Yes, but you have to live in that city.
Yes, that's true, and I think that's the balance. But yeah, so I'm gonna say Giants for the National League, who are obviously gonna win because it's 2016. And let's see. Oh, you know what? I think it's going to be Cleveland, and I think we're going to avenge the Warriors.
There you go.
You know what? In the Indians, they're going to blow a 3-1 lead.
People forget that the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead to Cleveland. It's just not talked about that much. I don't have the courage to predict that the Jays are going to go all the way because I don't know if you can win every game on a 3-run home run. Although tonight they didn't have to. So maybe if they could just do 10-1 all the way, I think they'll pound the Rangers and it will be delightful. It's so weird, having strong opinions about an organization so otherwise unremarkable as the Rangers, but I hate them and they all suck. But yeah, so they'll crush them, and then the Rangers
were the first team we beat in the World Series. Good times.
And then the Rangers will wait until late next season to get their revenge with a beanball because they've got nuts. But the World Series, I think I'm going to go with the Cubs. It's frankly, me saying it isn't any more jinxed than their existence.
Yeah, it's frustrating because the Cubs, your year was supposed to be 2015. It was prophesied.
That's right. And now you're gonna be the team that's won so much and destroying the dreams of 100-year-old people.
So weird. It really wasn't. It doesn't feel like that long ago that we were just oh my God, it never the San Francisco team has never won. For example, before 2010, the first time or the last time the Giants had won was when my dad was born, and then they won again when my niece was born. That is 3 generations. But it's fun. And
I'm going to say it's the Theo Epstein series. I'm going to say they'll beat the Red Sox, and then I think the Mariners have to pay him $50 million or something like. Because I feel like they're the now. If the Cubs win, I think the Mariners might be the long-suffering franchise. Is there anybody else?
Well, there's a bunch of
I
teams
guess
that
the
have
Indians,
never
right?
won. Then it's tricky because there's a bunch of newer teams that like have never won. Like the Nationals.
The Mariners aren't a newer team. They're like
I know.
almost as old as me now.
But like the Nationals have never won. The Rangers
They don't. Nationals.
The Rangers had never won.
Rangers.
Just
But yeah,
saying.
I guess the Indians are the suffering team. Yeah.
Yeah, but whatever. Have a less racist mascot, and maybe we'll let you have a less.
They can suffer.
Yeah.
You don't deserve to win, Cleveland. You're awful.
Like, at least, if you're not going to get rid of the name, at least get rid of the logo. Oh, my God.
Well, they tried that,
They
I
did.
think, in the 90s or something. They had, like, a hat that was just, like, an ugly, jagged C.
It's a bad C. I mean, that's the problem. It's a boring-ass C. It's really plain. It looks like minor league teams have better graphic design than that.
Yeah, and people were like, yeah, we don't like that. Go back to the racism. And like, okay. And then, like, yeah, it's like, hey, at least our name isn't as racist as the other ones, so nobody's talking about us.
Yeah, it's like, true, but oh my God, your logo is so racist.
So bad!
It's really bad. That is like some Peter Pan shit.
Yeah, you're like a caricature of humans. That ain't right, man.
No.
And actually, I was going to say, and I cheer for a football team called the Eskimos, but I don't cheer for them. That's CFL. Okay, so to finish that off, now that we've lost everybody that isn't interested in sports.
Sorry.
I really should have put this before that. We should predict what's going to happen next week. So we'll stick to the pattern of predicting one person per tribe. I'm going to go first. Let's start off. I think it's. I'm just going to roll over my predictions from last week. Basically, I predicted Lucy for lulz reasons, but now I think it's Lucy. I think the preview suggesting something's going to happen with this invisible person tells me this invisible person's going home.
I forgot that being on the podcast meant I had to do the predictions now. Am I stuck with these predictions?
Yes.
Ah, crap.
Ish. I don't know. I suppose you could wimp out later, but you have to admit to the wimping out and give out reasons. Actually, I think John did that recently, so sure. Yeah, you can change it if you want. To
stall, I'm going to continue with Figgy.
Me
just because I don't think... Oh, yeah, sorry. I forgot you weren't even done.
No, it's okay.
Well, I guess you said you were rolling them over. I guess I assumed that was both of them. Yeah, so I'm going to stick with Figgy just because, we got Taylor saying, like, oh, yeah, I've got my girl, like, I'm in a great position. But then the Millennials still won. So, like, I feel like that's got to be setting it up, but it doesn't seem like they're going to turn on Taylor. And honestly, as much as I hate being like, yeah, vote out the girl because of the weekly, like, vote out her because Taylor's dumb. You can do whatever you want with him. It'll be fine. Like, keep him as your brute strength, like, worth it. But, so I'm going to say Figgy.
I also think she's just annoying. I think and not like to us, just us necessarily. Like, I've gotten that vibe from people who be like, I don't, and she wasn't saved because people liked her.
No.
She was saved because she was useful. But like, there's the secret scene this week is Hannah talking about it and how, Figgy is probably somebody who's used to getting her way in life and getting attention. Well, that's code for she's annoying. And like, other people don't come to the island so that you can get attention. They want their own. And then even Michelle had a bonus scene where she's talking about the easy next thing would be Zeke and Adam, but I kind of want to work with Adam, and I don't know if I want to work with Vicky, to the point where she wants to tie herself to that. So, it could be a situation where she annoys people. I doubt she's going to get less annoying the more empowered she's been in this situation. And it's just like, you're bad for my game, man. Like, you guys just go off and do your thing. Plus, who really wants to be hanging outside the shelter while a sock's on the door, right?
Yeah, seriously. I just hope for their sake. Does anyone? No, I guess it before has like. Does anyone? Are they like still a thing? Are they not allowed to say whether they are or not? Like,
currently, yes.
Like, is this going to be? Like, do we have a? Is this a? Rob and Amber, Keith and Whitney, Jamie and Eric. Although I don't think Jamie and Eric actually. I think that was like they flirted and they're like, yeah, we like each other, so they kept on doing that. I don't think, at least we didn't see them like make out. But granted, we didn't see that with Keith and Whitney either, but we all knew. Because they couldn't show that because Whitney was married. Anyway, like, you know, is it that, or is it going to be the Candace and Adam where at the reunion they ask if they're dating? They're like, yeah, you know, we live far away from each other.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that we're going to get a proposal at the no.
Honestly, though, they've twice shown Figgy talking about finding a husband.
Yeah,
Like,
no, that was
that's
in a
actually-
pre-game stuff.
And in the show. It was in pregame and in the show. Homegirl, you are 23. I know you're living in the South right now, so it might be confusing, but you don't need to. And I know you guys got me, but she doesn't. You certainly don't need to like run off with someone you met on a reality show at 23.
I think when you meet a Taylor, though, like you need to lock that down. That is clearly marriage material.
She wants to move to California. Trust me. There are Taylors abound. I went to school with a guy like that in high school. His name was actually Taylor. And he said Narnar. That was a thing. It was real.
All right, which old is going home?
Okay. I don't think about this. I'm gonna say that the Lucy thing will be like a red herring, or it'll be a long con like the Paul thing was. You know, it took a couple weeks. And I'm going to say, if they lose again, that they're going to be like, okay, like, we tried, but you know what? Cece's really dragging us down.
Yeah, I'll say why I think it's Lucy's not just the preview, but, well, actually, okay, so it is the preview, but then why I further think is, like, in the preseason, I just felt like she was going to be, like, a busybody. She's like a high motor person. She talks about that, like, she's always doing so many things, and she had the weightlifting and the work and stuff. And I think, you know, the island life and the slower pace is starting to get to her. Now, you know, the obstacle Paul Camp Dictator is taken out. She's going to be like, okay, now we can do these things. Like, I think she'll just probably feel herself, talk about much, that'll annoy people. And then I think Brett and Chris team up with Ken, David, and Cece. Because I also a bit of anger about being blindsided. So I mean, ironically, the men's alliance they were trying to avoid is created as a result. And also because the bat signal of women's alliance has gone up, and oh my god, we need to do something about it or they'll destroy us all.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely interesting. I could see that happening, but I can't predict the exact same thing as you.
No, I mean, I'm not good at it, so why would you? All right, so I think is that enough on this episode?
Yeah, I think so.
In general, how are you feeling about the season? Yeah, that sounds about right. That's accurate, I would say.
It's not garbage.
Yeah, it's not. Nothing is really making me like upset, except for clearly the stupid theme and the pushing of it. That apparently will wake children up that haven't gone to bed yet. And again, people, I'm on a different time zone. If you're thinking, oh my god, how late? I mean, you're not wrong, but you're not as wrong as you think. But like, I think there's potential for it to be good. It's just I don't think it is yet. So you called it. All right, so. You may be watching this on YouTube, but you can also find us and our various content on our website at purplerockpodcast.com. You can follow us on Twitter. The show is Purple Rock Pod. I am Purple Rock Andy. John is Purple Rock John. And you?
Purple Rock Emma.
Yeah, it's branding. Purple.
Yeah, we got great branding. Josh Wiggler said so.
But
it's an endorsement.
I know, but now he's like, "Oh, girl, you're not supposed to talk out of school."
He's not listening. It's fine.
He's really not.
If only endorsing the branding, not the show.
That's right. You can see it. You don't have to hear it. If you have future mailbox questions for myself and John, or who knows, maybe I'll be in a blizzard. You can send them. You can add us on Twitter. Obviously, you can DM us there, or you can email us at purplerockpodcast@gmail.com. I kind of like this. I like that it's been spurring on conversations amongst even people that aren't us. Unbelievably, I actually do like other people at least writing things. Maybe not talking. That's my thing. But I do like the input and opinions of others. So send some on if you got any. Anything else?
I'm good. Go Giants.
Support the podcast because things cost a little bit of money, and we'd like it to cost less. You can do so on our website. Go to the Amazon tab. Anything you buy there, we will get a tiny percentage of, or you can go to amazon.com/Purple Rock. Is that right? Purple Rock Podcast?
I think it's purplerockpodcast.com/Amazon, actually.
There you go. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I don't ever do it because I don't.
You can't.
Shop. I don't shop at .com. I mean, I could if I'm really excited about paying duty and exchange rates, but I care that much about the podcast that I should.
I don't do it much. I do it when I do shop, but I don't do it much because I don't buy things that
because
often
previously
because I'm
discussed.
A millennial.
That's right. You're not getting drones to deliver you things. You can't afford the same day delivery, and you're doing okay with your finances.
I don't even have Amazon Prime.
That would be too close to paying for content, and you can't have that. You're a millennial.
God, no.
All right, so I think the main takeaway is that everybody associated with the show wants the Blue Jays to win the World Series, and
Giants.
Jeff
Sorry,
Probst
I told you I
is so
had a
much
bad
older than he pretends to be. See you later.
Bye.
Hit the theme music.